Dr. Monty, as I'm going to call you and get you to diagnose all my medical problems while we're on the show. Not that kind of doctor. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thanks very much for having me on.
No problem, no problem. So I messaged you because we had a couple people. I was following your work along for a while, but you don't have a book. You're working on a book right now, and so, most of the time we interview people that are trying to promote a book, but had to get you on because a couple people, like 2 days in a row, mentioned that they were following you and following along with your work.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, I mean, I'm already following Dr. Monty. It's time to get him on the show. So,
I didn't pay them, I swear.
and I should say, two different people from two different completely parts of the globe too. So you got a following out there, man.
Exactly. Yeah, must be doing something right. So.
Yeah. So tell us about yourself. What's your background, and how did you get to this point of creating a comic book? And if you're following on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, on either side of Monty and I here, I have pieces of his artwork that you can see from his Instagram feed. If you're on Instagram, once our interview's over, you can head on over to his page and check out his work there. So, Monty, tell us about yourself.
So I'm from Dublin, Ireland. I was born there, still live there. Have a normal daytime job that isn't art related in any way, other than doodling during work meetings would be about it. So then just during free time, during the evenings and weekends, I'm kind of working away on my comic book. It was something that I'd wanted to do for a long time, but about 7 years ago, I started a college course part-time, so I was studying every evening and the weekends. That went on because I was doing it part-time, took 6 years to complete and didn't have the time to be able to do what I'm doing now. So I kind of always swore that once I finished college that I was going to start on the book, and so that's what I'm up to now.
Nice. Very cool. So have you always been a fan of comic books?
I have, yeah, a fan since I was a little kid.
Do you remember your first comic book?
I do. My first comic book was The Beano, which, interestingly, I think you were talking to somebody there recently.
I was going to say, that's not the first time I've heard this book. Yeah. Who was that?
It was an English guy in Spain, and I can't remember.
Oh, Joshua Saxon, Melky.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. And his first comic as well was The Beano. And I'd say practically anybody in around my age group, their first comic was probably The Beano. The Ireland at that time, and maybe it's still the case, there weren't any Irish comics being made for kids.
Oh, really?
So all the comics that we were getting were coming in from the UK, and The Beano was the biggest one.
Wow.
It's been going since the 1930s, coming out every week.
Wow.
So there's something over 4,000 issues have been come out anyhow. So yeah, The Beano when I was about 6 years old. So I was a big fan of that for
Mr. Anthropic 666 on Instagram says, "Big up the Beano." So, another Beano fan out there.
Good stuff. Other kind of kids UK comics used to read as well, and then kind of as I got older started getting into the likes of Eagle and 2000 AD, and stuck with 2000 AD throughout my teens. That would have been when 2000 AD was probably at its height in terms of the characters and the stories that they had, and also with a lot of the writers and artists. And then I suppose I probably wasn't until I was about 17 or so that I started getting American comics.
What was the first one you remember from there? What were you into?
I can't remember my exact first purchase, but I think the first one that I started getting regularly was Cerebus. I went into the comic shop and I was having a look around because I didn't know what anything was. Obviously, you'd know the names of Batman, Spider-Man, and Superman and everything, but it was really the indie comics that appealed to me. And so I started picking up a number of those. There was Cerebus, Milk and Cheese by Evan Dorkin,
Yeah.
a whole bunch of other indie things that were would have been doing the rounds back then. But yeah, I'd say Cerebus was the first that I got, and then kind of kept buying comics ever since then. These days, I tend to buy, it's more indie stuff straight from the creators themselves.
Yeah.
And then maybe with the comic shop stuff, I tend more to kind of wait for collections to come out and buy them rather than getting issues every month.
Yeah, I was just seeing a thing that trade paperbacks for the big publishing companies is their number one seller right now. The individual issues just aren't selling as great, but the trades are just off the charts. So what's one of the more recent indie comic books you've picked up from straight from a creator?
Let's see, my favorite at the moment is The Metaphysical Mr. Fister by Jeffrey Kay. It's well worth checking out. Really, really good. Jeffrey Kay, that's his Instagram account anyhow. I think Jeffrey Kravchuk, I think it's his name.
Okay, I'll have to check him out.
There've been 2 issues out, and I think he has a plan to do something like 12, 13 or something around that as far as I know.
Okay.
He actually has the 2 issues available for download for free from his website. So
even better.
You can get a look at them there, but well worth getting them on paper.
Nice.
Really, really good. The art, the story, the dialogue, everything about it is just perfect. So that's one of the ones that I'm getting at the moment. Another is Jax by Abel Fader.
Yeah.
2 issues have been out of that. The second one just come out from Kickstarter. I think he sells it through his website as well. And then he's currently working on his 3rd. So they're kind of the ones that I'm following at the moment.
Very cool. Very cool. So you are creating your own comic book. Is it a comic book or a graphic novel? How would you...
Well, I was never that fond of the term graphic novel.
Okay.
I was just a big comic. So, but yeah, it's a graphic novel. Okay. I suppose people know what you mean when you say graphic novel.
It's a big comic.
Exactly.
So you're creating one called Scum Circus.
Yes.
Tell us all about it.
The plot of Scum Circus is fairly simple. Basically, the main character is kind of given a task of deciding whether or not humanity should be wiped out. And then the book follows his kind of a surreal journey that he takes through making that decision. Plan is for it to be about 130 pages long.
Oh, wow.
Just a little over halfway through the pages at the moment. So lots of it done, lots more to go, but it's going well so far.
Great. Apocalypse Kinda, on which they just sent me a book, and I just love the title. The title of the book is Apocalypse Kinda. They asked on Instagram the name. I think it maybe both titles. They said, "What was the title you listed again?" So, Love and Rockets, right? And then, what was the other title?
Sorry, and of what I've just bought.
Yeah, of the indie books that. Bought.
Metaphysical Mr. Fister.
There you go.
And Jax. They were the 2.
All right. So let's talk more about Scum Circus. It's developing. It's coming along. When do you think? Time frame, or are you not putting pressure on yourself? Or
yeah, I'm trying not to put too much pressure on, just in case. Like the free time that I have that I'm doing it in changes, or if other things come up. But the general plan is for it to be finished sometime around probably late spring next year. Wow. So if I keep going at my current rate, that's well achievable. So I'll wait and see, but that's the plan at the moment anyhow.
Great. And are you going to kickstart it, or are you going to publish it some other way? Or, no.
The plan for that is to sell it through Amazon print on demand for international sales. Nice. And then also, at least with that way, I think one of the problems that I've come across a lot in indie comics is there've been comics being produced in America that you go to buy a $4 comic but the delivery cost is $25,
Yeah.
and you just can't. And so I kind of don't want the reverse happening to me, that
Right.
pricing people out of shipping it from Ireland.
Yeah. That's
So
smart. That's smart.
Amazon Print on Demand for international deliveries, and then also sell through my own website. And that way that you'd be able to include little extras like some sketches or things like that.
Nice. Very cool. So, I mean, there's a lot of people out there who have an idea for a comic book and they don't take it to creation. You know, it's just stuck as an
Yeah.
idea in their head for forever. What inspired you to actually do it?
I guess it was something that I had wanted to do for a long, long time. So it was always in the back of my mind. And I was just kind of waiting to get the time really to do it. And once that became available to me, I dove straight in. Hadn't got a clue what I was doing at first. So really the plan at the start was just do one page, see how that turns out. And even just from doing that first page, you learn so much from that you wouldn't come across when you're just drawing normal pictures on a page.
Right.
To do with the whole things to do with panel layout, dialogue, placement, the text, everything, just countless skills that you begin to develop as you start producing the pages. So did the first page, that went okay. Did the second, and just kind of kept on going from there, really.
That's awesome. Matt, I don't know if you saw the interview this past week, Wednesday, with Matt and Aaron from Catalyst Comic Studios, but Matt said very much the same thing. He liked to draw, but he had never done a comic book before, and he's just learned so much just by doing it. And exactly what you said, like his first book, he said you can see the difference between the beginning of the book and the end of the book, how much he had learned from just within that one book.
Yeah, every 10 pages I look back at what I've done earlier and I just go, I want to redraw all that, but I'd never get the book finished if I did that. So I just keep on going.
Exactly. So let's talk about your art for a minute, because it is amazing to me.
Thanks very
when
much.
I was younger and reading kind of the main two comics, I kind of snubbed my nose at black and white comics. And now I find they're some of my favorite. And your work, I don't know if you plan on coloring it, but the work you've been posting in black and white, I just absolutely love. How did you develop your style and choose that style ultimately for Scum Circus?
I've always loved black and white comics. So I suppose it was like since most of the comics that I would have grown up with, they were black and white, and then even ones that I was getting later on, a lot of my favorite ones were all black and white. So it was something that I kind of wanted to do. I did look into considering coloring it. I figured that I may not have the skills myself. I might need to get somebody else to color it if I wanted a really good job done. But between the cost of paying someone to color 130 pages and also the additional cost in printing, it just wasn't worth it. So I decided to stick with the black and white.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And again, if you're on YouTube or YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook, you can see some examples of Monty's work here on the screen. But if you're on Instagram, you only get the center of our screen. So after this video is over, go check him out. Go check out his artwork. Give him a follow at Dr. Monty Canson. It's on the screen right there at the bottom. You can see it. So go check him out after this, because the artwork is just amazing, which is probably what led me. I don't really remember why I followed you in the first place, but I know I did. And it was probably your artwork, because it's awesome. It's awesome.
Thanks very much.
So let's talk indie self-published comic books. You mentioned some people that you purchased recently, but who else are you just following just to kind of devour what they're posting on social media right now?
Let's see. There's Gabe Osley is one that I'm following. He's just after making a free-to-download comic, Mickey the Barbarian. It's well worth checking him out on Instagram and downloading that. It's a Mickey Mouse story in the style of Conan the Barbarian.
That's fantastic.
Obviously with countless breaches of copyright. He's not able to sell it, so he was doing it just for people to have for free. So that's Gabe Osley. Another that I really liked lately was the Vacuum Decay. That was really good.
We're going to have him on in October, the creator of Vacuum Decay.
Good. Yeah, very good. Harry Nordlinger, isn't it? I think that I brought that up. Yeah. Then there's a whole host, like the amount of talent out there is absolutely incredible. The number of people on Instagram that are doing such incredible work. There's, let's see, who else is it? Like Ryan Tavares, who you had on yourself, I really like his stuff. He's been putting out a really good short story there over the last number of days on his Instagram. You mentioned earlier there Mira's Workshop, Plamena. Really looking forward to seeing her book. Looks what she's posted on that looks great. Then there's a whole bunch of others that are doing great work.
That's awesome. That's so true. That the Instagram community, at least, I feel like there's different communities of indie comics. There's this Facebook community, which is fine. There's this Twitter community, which is fine. And then there's this Instagram community that is just really posting really great creative artwork right now. It's amazing to follow. If you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, nothing wrong with those communities. It's just a lot more promotion and stuff going on those two channels to try to get people to buy their books, rightfully so. But Instagram is just a trove of creativity right now. I love it all. All right, so this isn't one that was on the list of questions I sent you, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I asked most people this question. But since we haven't read Scum Circus yet, but you have the idea in your head, and so you're writing it out. If you could eventually do a crossover with Scum Circus and any other book, what would it be?
Right. I think that would have to be The Flaming Carrot by Bob Burden.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm not.
An indie comic, which I don't think it probably hasn't been made in about 15 years at this stage. But while it isn't anything like Scum Circus, the main character, I think, would fit in that world really well. So I think, Flaming Carrot. And if you're not familiar with it, it's well worth checking out. It's kind of a surreal superhero parody indie comic, and it's excellent.
All right, I am going to have to check that out. You've mentioned several that I'm going to have to dig deep and find here because you've listed some that have piqued my interest. So you're making your own book. I realize you haven't published it yet, but if you could give advice to someone who is wanting to follow your path and start making their own book, what would it be?
Yeah, I think it would have to be the advice that most people give, which is really just start it. Yeah. Don't wait until you have the story necessarily fully developed. Don't wait until your art skills have reached a particular level. Just start that first page. The amount you'll learn just from doing that one page will be incredible, and just carry on from there. And whether it's just a 2-page or 4-page short story, or whether you're starting off with a comic and going to do 22, 24 pages, just start as soon as you can. So I think that would be the best advice I could give.
Very good. And I love that advice from people. You're right, a lot of people do give that advice, but I think it's so worth always repeating because so many people are out there going, I just can't do it right now, or now's not my time, or I'll fail.
Exactly.
And the more you hear, just do it, the more likely you are to finally do it.
Especially to people who want to make a very polished product and feel that they don't have the right skills at the moment to achieve that. Whereas you get those skills from making the comics. So just start it and see how it turns out. And if it isn't as good as you'd hoped, the second one is going to be way better. So just keep on going.
It's so true. It's so true. So Monty, tell people where they can follow you, how they can support you right now, and we know to be looking for your book coming out late spring of 2021. So, but tell people where they can follow you and how they can support you.
You only find me at the moment on Instagram. So anytime I have a page done, I post it up. I tend to draw the pages in random order. That's the only thing. So you can't really follow the story necessarily from start to finish, but still you'll get to see the pages.
That's smart.
So
tease us, but don't give us the story. I like it.
It's more because I don't know what's happening on the other pages. Then I have a short story in an anthology that's coming out. I don't think there isn't a fixed date for that yet.
Okay.
Sometime probably in October, early November, I'd say.
Nice.
So I'll be posting lots more about that soon. That's along with a whole bunch of brilliant artists that are also shared their work regularly on Instagram. And yeah, so that's the only place that you really find it. So I don't have any, there's no Kickstarters or Patreons or anything like that. But if anybody has money they want to send me, I won't say no.
Sounds good, man. Well, you heard him. If you have extra cash, send it to Dr. Monty. Monty, thank you so much. I am so looking forward to seeing this book in the spring and maybe even picking up that short story you mentioned. So definitely keep us informed of that. And everybody out there, if you're on Instagram, go follow at Dr. Monty Canson. He's on Instagram posting great content every day, really inspiring content, and not on other social media platforms yet, but you can follow the Indie Comics Dispatch on all social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So if you're not following, liking, or subscribing, do that. Monty, thank you so much for being here today. It's a real pleasure to get to talk to you finally after seeing, liking each other's stuff back and forth on Instagram and hearing your name mentioned. It's awesome to add you to the list of people that I can say I've interviewed and maybe even call international friends. So thank you for being here.
Thanks very much for having me on there.
No problem. Everybody out there, we will talk to you next time. This coming Wednesday, we're interviewing Electromagnetic Press. They have several really cool books out right now, especially a couple anthologies. Check it out this Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. We'll see you next time.